Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I am joined by Chief Bryant, our Atlanta Police Chief, Chief Smith, Chief over Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, and many others. As you can see, also Justin Johnson, our Deputy COO, Dave Wilkerson from the Atlanta Police Foundation. Last night, the Atlanta City Council took a very important vote. That vote was regarding taking the next step in creating our public safety training facility. I thank those members of council who were courageous in placing this vote and continuing to put public safety and the morale, retention of the men and women who serve us each and every day, putting this forward. There have been many questions as to why we are moving forward with this facility. And what I've said repeatedly over the last year is that holding the men and women who serve us in a public safety capacity accountable is not mutually exclusive from supporting them. And if you have ever had an opportunity to visit either the police academy or the Atlanta Fire Rescue Training Facility, they are simply deplorable. In fact, it's my understanding that the Atlanta Fire Rescue Training Facility was condemned last year. That's how bad it is. The Atlanta Police Department, there are no lockers for the cadets. The roof is leaking. It has mold. The list goes on. And in fact, Atlanta Public Schools left that building many years ago because it was not in the state that you would want to bring children in and out of each day. And so I just remind people that as we want the best, we want our officers and the men and women who serve us at Atlanta Fire Rescue to have a good attitude and disposition when they encounter us in our communities. It's important that we live up to that end of the bargain as well. We've talked about 21st century training, 21st century policing. You can't do that in subpar facilities. And I know there have been a lot of sensitivities, understandably so, about the location. This will be located at what's known as the Atlanta Prison Farm. The city of Atlanta has owned this property for over 100 years. We looked at several properties. I even put up several properties for consideration, but they were just not the appropriate fit. We have to be thoughtful about building this facility in a way that is considerate of taxpayer funding. Thankfully, we have some philanthropic support, corporate support that will give us to the tune of $60 million by the time it's all said and done, with another $30 million coming from the city of Atlanta. But again, I can't stress enough, it's not mutually exclusive. In the same way that I have asked for passage of legislation related to this facility, it's the same way I'm continuing to push for the transformation of our city jail, because we know that we cannot police our way out of the challenges that we are having in our city and across our country. We have to address those systemic issues that are leading to the outcomes that we are experiencing on our streets. So I, again, just want to thank the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department, Atlanta Fire Rescue, for the service that they give to us each and every day. We were just in this room a couple of days ago marking the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I mentioned I watched a documentary last week on how the men and women ran into the building. You all know the story. I saw another one last night. That story doesn't change. And the world got an opportunity to witness the sacrifices that these men and women make on behalf of us. But the men and women who are standing in this room today do it each and every day. And people have said we need to abolish the police and defund the police. Well, I don't know how you do that unless somebody is going to abolish crime. I know that when my house has been broken into, not once but twice, it's the police I call. When our family experienced a tragedy, these men and women who solved the case. When my son had a seizure, it was Atlanta Fire Rescue that showed up. When my son had an asthma attack, the paramedics, Atlanta Fire Rescue, that showed up. So this notion that we somehow cannot, or that we somehow can exist in society without public safety is simply ludicrous. But what we do want, and I want the same things you want, is for us to have positive interactions with the men and women who serve us. And I truly believe that the creation of this public safety training facility where we can train with the expectations that people will treat our communities with respect, that they will be given the most up-to-date training, not to serve as warriors in our communities, but to serve as guardians in our communities. So I thank our philanthropic partners, corporate community, the Police Foundation, and especially the men and women of Atlanta Fire Rescue and the Atlanta Police Department, who despite the circumstances and the setting in which they enter each and every day, that they continue to show up and to serve us with integrity. And then just lastly, I know during last night's city council meeting, you could hear protesters in the background from people showing up at people's homes protesting last night. And it's disturbing on many levels. I've had this experience at my home to have people throw taunts at my kids about them being adopted. And my husband said it best. He said, you know, when people do that, sometimes bad things happen to good people. So at the end of the day, we're all human. So if I get bad service at Dunkin' Donuts, I don't show up at your house yelling, berating your family. And thankfully, when it happened at my home, it was tough, but I didn't go outside and drag the woman in my yard like I wanted to do when she began to taunt my children. But you can't always expect that everybody's going to have that same response. So let us have a civil conversation about how we can honor the concerns and address the concerns of the community regarding this urban forest. We're not taking the entire parcel. There are hundreds of acres there. We are using 85 acres. There's still going to be an urban forest there. This is the beginning of a very long conversation and how we work with the community and make sure that we preserve as much as we can for community use. But I can tell you, for me personally, when you bully me and you try and terrorize me, it's the end of a conversation, not the beginning. And I'm going to assume that is the same way with the men and women on the Atlanta City Council and each and every other person involved in this process. Let us be civil with one another. We can disagree all day long. We had 17 hours of public comment. That is how you express your concerns. You email, you call on the public comment line, but you don't show up at people's houses when their children are home alone, as they were last night, or when they're caring for elderly parents. You're going to lose the conversation at that point, and that is not what we need to move forward as a city. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Bryant.